Hello, friends, and welcome to the Deconstructor of Fun podcast. I'm your host, Mishka Katkov, and in today's episode, I'm joined by my friend and former colleague, Sophie Vo. She's a person with 15 years of experience in the game industry from companies like Gameloft, Wooga, Rovio, Voodoo, and dear old Savage Game Studios. Sophie is also known for her Rise and Play podcast and newsletter, so if you enjoy the content of this podcast, I really suggest you sign up to Rise and Play newsletter, as well as subscribe to her awesome podcast. Now, in this episode, we talk about a lot of selves, meaning the importance of self-esteem, self-awareness, self-reflection, and self-evaluation. We also discuss strategies for dealing with negative feedback and the common pitfalls of leadership, which, in our experience, stem from misalignment within teams. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Please do check out Rise and Play podcast, and please do connect with Sophie Vo. She runs great workshops, and I know this because I've attended them. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Welcome, Sophie, to Casa Katkov.
You mean like barn?
Not castle,
cabin.
casa, like a casa,
casa.
Yeah, this
Casa.
is for sure. This is not castle. Anybody watching on YouTube, this is far from a castle. This is just a wooden house.
Casa, yes. A nice barn. Like we are also in the middle because people don't see in the video, but we are in the middle of nature.
Yes.
Actually, Espoo, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Still like the end of summer, like still like the bright light after PGC.
Yes, PGC, Pocket Gamer Connect, happening in Finland. It's the weirdest thing is like when you have these hometown events or hometown conferences, they're the most difficult to attend because people are like, hey, I'm here, I'm there, would you come here? I'm like, no, this is Tuesday. Like I got my kids that I need to take to daycare. They've got gymnastics. We got to pick up. They come from school. We have all this stuff. So there's not like when you go into an event, you have like a full day. You can slam it in. Like no, I have, believe it or not, a little bit of work to do. so it's hard to attend. But yesterday we were at an event. We organized together with AppsFlyer and Google. Shout out to both. A little bit of a mixer. You came in there. Mm-hmm. Had some dinner afterwards and all that jazz. How's your pocket gamer otherwise going?
Very good. Like we were just debriefing about it. Like for me, it's always like nice to catch up with like the whole community. Like from my time in Finland at Rovio before, and like everyone like from other organization and now building their own company or some going independent. Like you have a bit of everything. Some who have already tried one company which failed and like trying maybe the second one. So for me, the joy I get out of it is like the pleasure to catch up with like friends because I consider it's very friendly, the community in Helsinki. Part that is more draining is I must say the networking and like, the mass. So like, I was even like crossing Joachim and we understood each other when we saw like too many people. It's like it's time to go.
It's interesting when you go to, like, we're gonna get to topics, but when you go to different events, and normally when I wake up the next morning, I think about like some sentences come to my mind. I don't know if others have this. I've never, maybe it's just how my brain is wired up. And this sort of a conversation or interaction came to my mind this morning, and I kind of wanted to discuss it with you. So we were at the mixer, and then there was this one lady from Rovio. Shout out, you know who you are. She came in just like many people do, and just like have you probably noticed since the podcasting and everything that people know you, they've listened to you. So the threshold of starting a conversation with you is very low because they feel like they've had many hours of interaction before this. So naturally, I've had what do you call it? Not unilateral. Like, is it unilateral? Like one-way interaction with this person for a long time. So she came in and very nice person. Said that she's really enjoyed the podcast. It has helped her as she's entered the gaming career, and that she's learning a lot and all that positive thing. And I was like, thank you so much, and all this stuff. Introduce her to. She really wanted to learn more about our product, so I was able to introduce her to Maya Hoffrey. She moved to Finland to work at Supercell just a couple of weeks ago. I was like, Maya over there, maybe one of the best product people in the world. Just being objective over here. Likes art, likes all that stuff, so you should meet up. Anyways, introduce them, they have a good time, they connect. They're going to meet up and so forth. So this person is leaving, and the happy hour is closing. So she comes to me, she's like, hey, thanks for the introduction and all the conversations and so forth. I'm like, yeah, of course, like nothing. And then she's like, okay, I thought that before meeting you, that you were arrogant. But you're really cool and nice person. I was like, okay, thank you. And that kind of leads
very
to...
direct.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah, well,
shout out.
but where this is kind of leading is like, I've had this for, for better or worse, for a good part of a decade, where people have certain assumption of me, and they perceive that I'm a certain way without ever having an interaction with me. But you're now getting into the stage of, through Rise and Play and through being more visible and through discussions, through posts on LinkedIn, which we use not to promote ourselves, but to promote our visibility of our content and so forth. So it's a marketing channel. So you're using that marketing channel, and now people are probably having different perceptions of you. People who have never have interactions with you, never talked to you, never met you, but they think something of you because of the way you wrote or the type of content that you're covering. Am I accurate? Like, is this happening now more?
A bit more, and so it's funny that we start with that, because I'm going through like the comments I've had when I started, like sometimes meeting again at conferences people. So one comment I had, like, you sound like the same on the podcast. I guess that's good. So yeah, you like kind of sound like the same. It's like, oh, I feel I already know you.
Yes.
Before they start to talk to you. It's like, oh, interesting. So those are the kind of cute, sweet comments where, of course, my intention when we speak here, I try to be as close as possible, and even like true to myself, to what I share and the way I share it, that I would share. Like, I feel like that's how, what kind of conversation we would talk, of course, with the awareness of a microphone right now. However, it's not totally true. So that's what I'm trying to achieve most of the time. But then, yes, I started to have also more some interaction and awareness of also different perception or image, or not even from the podcast, actually more from what I advocate for. Like I've studied it almost 2.5 about conscious leadership, like a topic really close to my heart for me, based on my own practice, like leading games, also seeing quite many things, company going public, acquisition and so on. And when I have faced sometimes, in that case, like it was a recent event a few weeks ago, an opinion about how not true it was, like a facade and like even like a fake identity, it really hurt me, because this is something I'm really working hard on, and not for the image, but I really care about, and I have done the work for the people at least who have known me and worked with me. But it's like, what happened in that gap and between like what I have done and like the way I'm perceived that happens. And like back to your conversation, is like there's a reality that your image based on who is receiving will precede you based on their own experience and whatever they have had from their own experience, but someone who looks like you or talks like you, and that maybe have done something bad. So it's something I'm becoming aware of, and also not to react, but just to receive and like understand, and and sometimes is it worth engaging or not. So that's something as I start to rise with Rise and Play, just observing if there's some gap between, but I haven't face-to-face had experienced that.
So essentially what I'm talking about is a little bit of you could call it bullying through social media and so forth. I know you've had, now that the scale raises, the way what are we, 2 minutes in, 3 minutes in? I'm going to use an army example already. so this is the same one that I keep telling me, and this is the one that I keep as a rule, is like what I was told by the captain. Shout out to that captain whose name I've already forgotten, but in officer school he said, it doesn't matter what you do, 20% will still not like you. It does not matter. And then as you bring more scale, from 10, 2 people don't like you, from 100, 20 people don't like you, from 1,000, you already got 200 people who don't like you. And so as you're bringing the scale, out of those people who don't like you, there's always going to be assholes. And they're going to go on the next level, and you're going to get negative pushback. And this I know that what happened, those on Rise and Play Slack channel know as well. And we, of course, we're very encouraging words for you, but this is going to happen in the future because the scale keeps increasing, and through scale, there's going to be more assholes, always. So what's your kind of like what's your I know I'm asking you this because you're very self-observing and very much evolving type of a person where something happens, you're a normal person, you get upset, you get anxious, you get sad, then you have to share that to everybody. And then you kind of go back and you put a theory around it and like, this is how I'm going to deal with this now, and that's not going to hurt me anymore. So I saw that process now go through, and like, what is the exit? Like, what is that theory that the rest of us can use, basically?
Yeah, so which is also like we have been working together, and you know how I've approached most of those problems. Like first is exactly I like how you describe. Like I went through a cycle, but then it's like I believe in system because you know, every day we are confronted to so many decisions to make, and that kind of decision that catch you by surprise when you don't have a good system. Then you have to go really in like thousands of questions to even know what to do in the moment. So I took like a bullying experience online to really reflect what is the system I will use for decision making for myself. So first, like checking in, you know, like first step, okay, how do I feel about that message? Is there something that I believe that is true, and why is it hurting me? So because there's always something to learn about yourself, whether it's true or not. Like, why is it touching you? And I can say, like, here for that example of bullying where it was like really touching on imposture, basically, like
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, like you're not what you say you are. You know?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, and this is like touch a very strong identity part of me because
of course.
I grew up in a certain way. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Parents, immigrants. You know, like building your own wealth by working really hard, and also growing up in a very conservative way. And I had through my journey to emancipate myself and find my own identity through several personal transformation. So then, of course, when somebody is questioning who I am, it goes back to the question like, who am I as well? Like, who am I? Am I that Sophie that was 6 years old when it was raised that way, the one who moved to Berlin in 2014, the one who moved to Finland? I had so many stages, and it's a good reflection point for me. Like, do I feel behind what I'm doing? So that was the moment of reflection. And if I have insecurity about it, why is that? So it built that more confidence, like, no, wait a minute, I have done those things, I have done those things in this way, and so on. It's like, it is true to me. Yeah. So first, I would say gain from this when you receive an attack, whether personal or professional, it's a good point to reflect, do you believe in it or not, and why, and building your self-esteem through that. And second is like, what do I do? Because being more a public person, and like in my case now, my public image and brand is my future business. So they are both associated, and of course it's something to manage a bit more carefully than I'm an employee of XYZ, and you know, you can't hurt me because like my destiny is owned by a company, like my contract, right? So this is quite different here, where do I need to respond? Do I need to not respond? Or if I decide to respond, how do I respond? And so I build a system for myself. Is like, who is in front? Who's saying? Is it a person that I need to respond to, like has influence, a network, and that's maybe something needs to be corrected? Like if it's a false statement, misunderstanding. So I always want to start from a point of misunderstanding. So I have like kind of a tree of decision. Is like, first, do I engage or not? And if so, how? And before that, there's the evaluation is who. And like a whole risk assessment is like, what is it that I should say? And for me, I build also a framework of response to that. Always start with thank you. I know it's silly, but always start with thank you. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Thanks. Again, like I stay true to my principle. I always give a benefit of doubt. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Maybe there's something I've done to harm that I said and I didn't know, and I have an opportunity to learn because I always want to learn. So thank you. Can we talk? It's like, it's very. I would like to understand what led you to say this or that or act this way, and maybe we have a dialogue. And if, based on the response, there's a dialogue, a curiosity, it's like, thanks for writing me. I'm happy you reached out because I wanted to express this. And then actually what I meant to say is, okay, we understand each other. And sometimes some conversation I've had more professionally, like in a workplace, actually we're creating bonds because that's where we overcame like kind of an uncomfortable state, like opinions, and then oh, we misunderstood each other and actually we connected even further. So I believe a lot in that approach, but it depends on the respondent. When it's like doubling down on great that you wrote, or like because you're, you know, this or that, insulting and without even asking a question, this is a sign for me to not engage further, because there's no interest in learning and understanding, or even a dialogue. You know, it's two ways. So here it's just keep insulting. So in that case, I thank the person as well, keeping my principles, and then wish the best and disengage. So that's kind of my system. It will probably update as I have different, you know, it's like almost
as the
like
scale grows.
But that's what I took away from it, and it gave me peace because I can be more prepared for the situation instead of like being taken also by surprise. And what do I do? And I appreciated a lot. We have had more private conversation on the support, really, to like just what you shared, even like accepting this reality, you know, as you grow. It's like if you don't do something I like that matters, and then also where you take a stand, because you take a stand in the world, otherwise you are a people pleaser and you say everything that everyone wants to hear, you will also displease others. That's inevitable, and that's also part of and to be okay with that, right?
Yeah.
When you are you, it's not, your you is not for everyone as well.
I think for me, like, it was, this is a great process. So self-evaluation, that helps you to build self-esteem of who I really am. Then you go into an action, which is like, thank you for expressing what you, I mean, I wouldn't thank in those situations that we're talking about. That's an attack. You don't thank for attacker. But if somebody wants to engage in conversation, thank you. Let's either continue talking if you're willing. You're willing, opening that door. If the person is still not willing, then just close that door, and there's no point in trying to change somebody's opinion. And that is like, for me, what has always helped with is understanding that things are not as objective as we project. Meaning, like, if something has happened and you feel a certain way that something went against you, like something has happened to me many of times where I felt that person crossed the line and they did this and they did X. And so that is my memory of that. That is my perception of what has happened. That is not objectively what has happened.
Never.
And you don't know the intent. You might, even if I would go through the words, I can tell you, like in a context, I could take a set of words and tell you what has happened, and then it's up to you to interpret in what way the words were taken. What was the whole context of the situation? So the same thing goes with everything that we do, is that we have our perceptions of how things are done or what has happened, but that is only our side of the story. And that came to me, and like I've interacted with some, you know, good leaders, and sometimes they might reach out, or you might reach out as like, hey, I've heard this. This is one and a half of the story. What's the other half of the story?
Yeah.
Like, that's their start of the conversation. And they're not like reciting the certain things. And I'm like, oh, that's the type of a decision making. That's how I need to be thinking about every communication or every sort of a thing that is told to me.
Yep.
I was like, okay, interesting, great half side of the story. I want to hear the other side of the story. And you know, sometimes I just don't want to hear even the half of it. But that's kind of a thinking, is like, these are not facts, but I understand the emotional response, because you're independent now, and that is something that is hurting you directly, and it's not hurting the company you're working at or so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will talk about it later, but it's done that for a while. But when you throw yourself out there to be, you know, standing on your two legs and not being hiding behind a company name, it's like it's you being, you know, judged, evaluated, every part of you, right? So of course it's still I'm not sharing my personal life, so it's not a full me, but it's a part of professional me that is of course judged, and to be okay with that, and to be also okay that it's a certain part of me that is judged. It's not fully me. That's why going always back to who am I as a friend, who am I as a partner, who am I as somebody who has done other things that nobody knows publicly of. But that's how you keep your self-esteem. It's like, remember, and if there's something that you truly feel sorry about and shameful about, being honest, and what can I do to correct this if there's something that you haven't closed, you know? Like sometimes I have had conflicts also, you know, in the work, and it was a good moment for me to reflect, and like, this is a moment where I've made a mistake, and then I will not be in peace with it until I own it, and then I repair it with the person misunderstanding, or I went too far without knowing about it. And once you close this, then you are really sitting on the confidence, because you've done everything you could have to not have this little weak point, like fragile point that can hurt you if somebody mentions something about it.
Yeah, that's another point that you're raising. Your approach, and perhaps my approach of dealing with negative talk, because that's what everybody deals in all their setups. Like you have, and I think the first part, when you talk about the self-evaluation, I think that's really important, and that is the most difficult part, is owning up to, like, hey, there's most likely some truth in this. Let me understand what has going on. And like in our working experience and everything, I've always asked you, like, hey Sophie, am I this? Am I that? And so when these situations happens, like somebody calls me arrogant, I'm like, I feel pretty confident because I have many mirrors, you being one of them. It's like, great. I understand that might be your perception, but I'm quite confident that that's not, like, that doesn't faze me anymore, because I've had already conversations with the mirrors that I use that's not me. And great that your perception has changed. But I want to jump into another topic, which is really the kind of like the meat of this. So sorry for talking about the yesterday and kind of the previous one. Is like, I want to quote Morten Mikkos. He's the CEO of HackerOne. Great dude. And he said this: if you're successful, you do whatever you like. If you're unsuccessful, you do what someone else likes. It's simple like that. And that is the type of a quote that I've written everywhere. And it's a very powerful quote of what success really is in the end. And I wanted to kind of like ask you, like, are you doing whatever you like right now?
Well, that's why I decided, I guess, like over the summer, to really reflect on, do I even love what I'm doing every day? I know it's very ambitious, and it's not the reality. As we are professional, we work with constraints. Sometimes not always the partners that we chose, because someone else has chosen another partner for us. All those realities, and I have to, like, I'm like a deep thinker. You've known like how I worked, and I've been asking myself, like, what is how is the resource for me of even like the talent of what I have to offer in the gaming industry. And it's a lot of my energy, inspiration, creativity, even joy. Like I have a lot of joy. I love to work with joy, laughs, and we had moments of laughs.
I think we all like to do that way.
Yeah, and so I thought of the opposite. What are the things that don't give me joy? And when I had to remove some of those, I realized, like, what if I can focus mostly, or if only, on the things that I truly enjoy, that brings me joy, but also where I can share that joy. And it came down to a few things where I was reflecting what were the moments where I felt the most fulfilled in my career and in a personal life. Like first, like working, connecting a group, and I have that multiple times, whether it's like building my team at Voodoo, working also with amazing live ops teams at different companies, and even like that moments when I was helping you as a team of co-founder at the beginning, like of our work together, and through some other work we've done later. That moment, like that bomb moment, like, oh, I did not realize that, and that has really influenced how I perceive things and how I feel about myself. Like the feedback I get working with people, I feel lighter, I feel more myself, I feel less stressed, and this brings me a lot of joy, because that's what I wish for any professional. The closer you get to yourself, and I believe also that financial success follows that as well, for reasons we will talk about. Because a lot of decisions we make by constraint, things that we don't want to do, again, like working with people, maybe we don't want to, and then we drag this over and over, and this has a cost as well. So focusing mostly on that, I thought, what is the environment I need to do that? And the conclusion is, like, I have a great network with Rise and Play of conscious leaders I have built, like a community that has been really growing, and also giving credit also to the work done, because acknowledging we need a space for that kind of conversation, and leveling up the knowledge, good practices of management, self-leadership. So for me, working with a great group of people, and also influencing for transformation, professional and sometimes personal transformation, are the main elements. And the best way I thought of doing that, and following really what I believe in my ethic of work should be done is to be independent. And that's how I concluded recently that going full-time really with Rise and Play to create, because I could keep, my career and be frustrated of things I don't control, or then I start to create the job that I dream of doing. And back to your quote, like behind like the success, we talk a lot about financial success, but to me, success, can I be myself? And by being myself, where I can live, survive, live well, like of it, but also influence and impact others to find their path. That's the most fulfilling like circle I can have, and that's why. So it's been really matured in my mind for several years already. I just didn't know how to kind of execute it, and I'm very thankful for all the mentors, although they didn't know there were mentors in my life to reach that point, and you were one of them as well. Like for the work on the Constructor Fund, the things we've done in Istanbul, like I had a lot of joy, like participating to those community events and changing, impacting really how they get into the gaming industry career and so on. So I think that's what we had very, very much in common with the work we were doing with media networks.
Media.
I read that recently, like in the news. I think it was Neil, like writing, like Rise and Play, a media and leadership business. Like I never thought of it. So.
Everything is media right now. It's just like it's you need to do the marketing to service your. So I guess that's media. Influencing transformation, finding path. I like how you always take a step back and really think what you want to do. This is something that I fail at. I just go ahead like a train.
We were a good combo. It's like, wait a minute, stay here for a moment.
Oh my God, I'm just like, there's 5 new starts that we can start thinking about. So one of these things, like I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni's books, for example, and in all of his, like if people haven't read Patrick Lencioni, these are like 200-page long books. If you listen to an audio, it's between 2 to 3 hours max. Fantastic books. Usually tell about a story in some company in the Bay Area, and a fictive story, and then come up with like a solutions for it. And nearly in everything, and his books are really about focusing on the leadership style. Nearly with everything, it's about leadership alignment. Like that's his thing. One-on-one leadership alignment. And I just finished up a podcast with Chris Petrovich, and even he was talking about, like, in terms of an M&A, about leadership alignment, like that's what he was talking about. And I know that this is something that you want to work against. So there's the one where you're influencing transformation, of finding a path, but through all of our interactions, like you've been really adamant on this alignment, and I've sold it, hook and tails everything, whatever the saying is. Like, what do you see are the common pitfalls of leadership? Like, is it like, it's easy to say misalignment, but what is it like? How do you see it?
Yeah, so what's behind misalignment is, it's more of a result misalignment, right? But it's like comes back to what are the misalignment about? So you can have misalignment on the vision of the company, like where you're going. So back to also the conversation we had just before, you can start straight and build your game. But then at some point you end up with a group that becomes like your company, and then when you haven't aligned with that, you start to see problem as you scale, right? Usually you can ship your first game, and if it's also like hitting well the market, good for you, but scaling is really the hurdle. So misalignment is on the vision. Where are we going? What are we doing? What are we even focusing? What are we not doing? So that's something that needs a conversation, and even like the same language, values, or ways of working, or ways of not working. What is unacceptable for us as a group? And again, like if you look at typical profile of people who are part of a management team or even co-founders, they are experienced professionals who have experience from somewhere else. So they already take with them a baggage, a culture from a company. And I'm not even putting here the cultural, like personal, like country culture. And at last, the purpose, like the real, like the why you build that company. And this is the part where it's interesting, and I've seen quite misalignment of co-founders team just by talking, when they don't even know that they're misaligned. Because of course, when you ask, why did you build this company? And you have a surface answer, which is, well, we want to make the next big game in that genre, a mid-core shooter or hybrid casual.
New merge game.
Yeah. Yeah, or we want to solve that problem. Yeah. It's the vision. but why you particularly are you building a company? I want to create a workplace with a way of working that I wish I had. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Or I want to prove to myself that I can build and exit a company. Okay, that's a very personal reason. Or I want to be crazy rich because so I can buy my villa on top of a mountain.
Just to get a good divorce.
And then have parties, invite my friends for party.
Yeah.
And this is not an acceptable answer. I could imagine in more official rooms when you talk to investors, but that's the real motivation that is most of the time in a co-founder team. And this is where, like when we had that workshop, I wanted to get really at the heart of it just by talking to each of you, understanding where you were coming from. Although even you could not fully verbalize it, but over time I understood it, like really by the values of each of you. What was your real why, but it's not necessarily that you were aware of it. So this is where I think, and I also talk on this with funds, I think of it as an insurance policy. Like when you are investing in a team, you don't really know what you're investing in until especially for potential, right? The type of games they release, you know only the credential. X, Zynga, EA, Rovio, great on paper, a great, great group. But how can they work together? And I believe that there's a step that can happen in that facilitation or just clearing it out, mapping out really what are the real motivation. And unfortunately, when those things are not fully aligned, so I think the most like misalignment is sometimes on the purpose because those things become more visible. How much are we taking money? When? What kind of growth are we expecting? Why? Who are we selling to? Why? When? And then, like back to the example I gave, if one wants to exit because they want to retire early, or one wants to stay forever in the company and build a company of a dream, it's a conflict of interest of how you're selling and who you're selling to. And those things just multiply over time because all the decisions you make to scale your business and grow, and those are affected. And everyone, imagine a company, you are the equal share, which is also a structure I've seen, which I'm not sure if it should always be that way.
So what are you talking about? A cap table where you start a company, let's say you and I start a company, we do 50-50. Or you and I and 3 others start a company, then we do like 25, 25, 20, 20, 10, or something like that. It's typical for European companies because we're socialists. It is not typical for others.
Yes. The problem with that, when you have equal shares, then you have to agree. And at some point, what if you don't, it's very well, without getting in detail, this is another reality when you're not aligned. So for me, the cost of not being aligned, it's so high and it can kill your company at so many different stages. So this is where I see the pitfalls, like kind of a lack of awareness, and you can see those signals along the way. Maybe you don't realize those in the moment, like, well, we work together, or we kind of discuss our vision and we put it on paper. No, it's something much deeper. And so there's a process. I'm not saying like I'm the only solution, but I do really want to help there at that step, because it's critical, like who you are picking as co-founders. It's not about who you're picking, but the kind of decision you make in the future, and even how you veto some decision when you have to. Who's doing that as well? Because if you're not aligned from the beginning, and it's okay to not have the same why, how do you get resolved when those critical moments when you need to sell or to raise the next round?
Yeah, there's a lot of good things that you talked about, not just the cap table, like the funds looking for the backgrounds. I think it has changed a little bit, and hopefully changing more. They don't do a lot of vetting of the core team. Usually the best vetting that fund can find is like, how have you guys worked, guys? You know what I mean. Have you guys have worked before together as a team? And if they're coming in from Riot, all these 5 people and so forth, so that means they worked for 5 years, so there's not going to be most likely any kind of drama because they have been working day to day together, and that is basically the biggest securement. The silly one is like when you start building your ultimate deck, where you're like, this guy is from Riot, she's from Bungie, he's from Valve, the other, let's call him non-binary person, is from Supercell, and then they might look fantastic on paper.
I've seen that so many times.
Yeah,
in
and
the
then
decks.
and then they go in and they get the round. They say like collective experience, this and that, and those are tend to be the teams that are most misaligned because they don't have the reps together, but they have actually a very strong background individually, where they have a very strong vision of how things should be and how should be done, and because they have an equal partnership or close to equal, then everybody has an equal voice inside the company. And those, if there is misalignment, that causes a lot of problems. So that's kind of like what you're alluding, and I was trying to just give a very concrete example.
Yes.
But my kind of like a question from there is like, in practice, how do you plan to get alignment between those type of teams? Let's say you come in, there's a founding team of 5 people, they've scaled down to 10 people. There's EA person, there's Supercell person, there's Rovio person, there's Playtico person, and let's throw in another one. You name it.
Yes.
And now they're 10 and they're saying like, we're kind of fine, everything is going hunky-dory, we're making our first product, but you're seeing cracks.
Yes.
Like the fund sends you. Sophie has landed.
Yeah, I see this more likely to happen with the encouragement of the fund, because usually what happens is like, even at an individual level as well, you don't have to change when everything looks fine. And it's like, it's like with health, it's like, it's fine, I can eat as much sugar as I want the rest of my life or drink alcohol, and one day it's like, oh, okay, I have like cardiovascular disease, and then it's like too late to correct. It's kind of the same idea here.
Don't look at me.
I'm looking at you because I'm talking to you.
I know, I'm just...
I'm not judging you. But so this is really hard to come from the company when they're founding. However, I hope this talk and with support of funds, because they have seen quite many, like a portfolio of hundreds of companies, and probably see the same patterns that I have seen. You have seen as well, also having done gone through all the stages, is first awareness is. Because it's really hard to help when there's not a buy-in. So this is a very important point in the future, how I also work with partners. Do they, based on everything that is shared in the industry, do they understand how important or how critical, what is the cost if it's not working well, to really have that right from the beginning? And so it's important to have a commitment as well of a management team for that. And when as you come in, I'm not an external coach. I am not an external consultant who has observed game from the side. I've been in the shoes, at least on some operational executive role, also in game development. So I understand, some of the fears, some of the embarrassment you don't want to have when you start to even to admit, like, okay, we built something, but we don't really know what we're doing.
Especially with men. Like, this is my experience, just my, not my experience. Like, even my objective experience as myself. Well, that's not objective. That's my personal experience, and my objective experience of having about maybe there's like 16 investments by now. For male founders, the most difficult thing to admit is you're having people problems. It's fine. They're like, oh, the attribution, the Unity is doing this, and KPI this, and dee-ba-da-ba-da, and legal documents, whatnot. But when you're having people problems, you can't get along with different people, those are something that I've noticed from myself and from others, that they're very hard to discuss. And I've been able to just get there, because if you haven't been a founder, if you haven't had these issues, it's even impossible to kind of dig out. But having had my share of people problems and not being able to communicate correctly, doing all kinds of mistakes as a first-time CEO and a founder, working with my co-founders, it's also easy to kind of start off with my own mistakes. Like, listen, these are the mistakes that I've made as a communicator, as a leader of a leadership team. Are any of these things happening? And then that leads usually to really fruitful conversations where people win. But they never start with that.
Yeah. So that's why I like to think of signals, because if people are aware already they have a trouble of communication, this is already a sign. And when you haven't really worked together, that's why it's a good security when you have worked together as a team, because you have a shared
trust.
Trust, and even a framework of communication to go directly through the real heart of conversation.
Yeah.
But when as you don't know each other and you have high stakes, everybody is kind of walking a bit on, eggshell and like not really saying like, so that is when you know, and usually I hope the CEO is aware and conscious enough that there's already kind of some discrepancy here. And the other signal is really when talking to employees, like we are 10 at a like team, what are you doing? You ask like several people in a row, independently. What is the game you're making? What are you trying to achieve? Answer A. And then you ask second person, answer B. And then when I have already 3-4 answers talking to 5 people, I kind of have already an idea like they have a different picture of a game they're making. Why is that? Like, so is this because a lack of alignment of a direction from the management, like the co-founders, or is it maybe miscommunication? It could be many different things, but already that is a signal. And the same applies for co-founders. When you take them separately and you ask, what are you building these days? What are you doing? What are your top priorities? What are your challenges with what we've done at our workshop? I've done that separately with each of you to even understand where you were individually. And I could understand, okay, we need to sit down together to align on this because there's not the forum of conversation to really see the same priorities. Like again, like back to the equal voice. So when I hear different priorities of a company, we need to get this game out on, no, we need to hire first that person, it's like different priorities and already from people who are core of the co-founders. And why is it easier from someone external to do that? First, I have no stakes in the company, so you can tell me whatever you want and be honest, I'm not going to judge, but so it's kind of in that sense, a neutral conversation coming from me. And second is, it's not, I rarely have seen in a group, okay, let's sit together and let's ask ourselves that question. It's unnatural. So that's why you see sometimes in meetings, like a producer, a moderator of conversation because you're neutral, you're objective. And also there's a lot of things that you can see in the unsaid. When you look at the behavior and how people interact with each other, and that's what I've done at the beginning also working with you, I was making a bit of a discrete audit, like,
of course.
You're like walking of the team, like observing like kind of a team as well, you and different, and then I gave you my diagnosis at the end. It's like, look, this is the situation I'm observing. Does that speak to you? Is it not? So now we have the sound of it.
Yeah, now we have rain on the background. It's nice. Recording in the rain, so.
So like a meditative sound, like Calm from the Calm app. And so I want to be here as a mirror as well to help. I'm just going to deliver what I have seen. If that sounds true to you, I'm happy to help, but at least you have an external picture when you don't have the bias of everything's fine, we're good, we're having some good dinners. That's not saying much about how you are truly aligned as a team. And that's how I would start. I would like to start based on my own experience.
Yeah. I wrote down in sort of like, what is the flow? Let me know if this is right. Of course, I've engaged in advisory projects over the years, but basically this is like your process of first awareness. So basically like getting the awareness, like do the people who you're here to help have the awareness that they need help? Because if they don't have the awareness, then you shouldn't even start.
No, it's a lost battle.
Yeah, and then second part is like getting commitment. It's like, this is what's going to happen. This is going to go forward. Are we all committed to this type of a process? So you're aligned with the founding team or the leadership team that this is the process that is going to be followed. It's not like something that they expected next week to be fixed. This is how I'm going to work. Is there clear? Got it. Then you go into basically gathering observations, not evidence, but observations of how the organization is functioning, finding all kinds of things that need to be improved or fixed. Then you talk to now that you have the view from the people of what are the problems, you go to the management and you ask them, hey, what are your priorities? And then you ask them individually so you can see how their priorities align together and compare how their priorities align with what the people in the trenches on the ground who are actually developing are seeing. Then you synthesize this information and provide a mirror to the leadership team of this is what you are. You're not aligned on your priorities, or you might be, but they're not aligned in what's happening on the ground. This is how they feel compared to how you feel things are. And then that gets into plan of action that is presented to the management team. It's like, this is how we're going to fix this. do we agree on this plan of action? And if they say thumbs up or any modification, then you get to work.
Yeah, and I would say the action plan is kind of a bit of a least important in the list, because it's more really the awareness and kind of, because I trust like really co-founders, they have all the abilities to solve the problems.
No, I've worked with too many founding teams.
You know, you have to trust the professional. At least that's where I'm coming from, because I'm not going to do the work, but let's take a concrete case here, whereas let's say there's overlap of roles, or even like a misalignment of direction. At least they walk out from this, like it could be like really more, I see that as a strategic offsite workshop like we've done. It's a commitment, like who's taking care of it, out of like who is in charge of this, of that, and how are you going to execute or even communicate your priorities and so on. And I believe more in accompanied work, because it's not like a one-time fixer. It's like, okay, great, and then we go back to your habits. And that's why, as well, being accompanied, it could be individual accompaniment. And I'm not saying it's just me, but that's why some have coaches. It's like, I'm so glad to hear now some founders who are, it's hard when you have a little budget at the beginning, but it's like investing in again, insurance policy for yourself. It's a good investment. It's not, you don't have a return immediately, but it's like de-risking quite early in a coach or in a mentor, somebody to help you to just be a partner, external partner to what you're doing. I mean, that's how I was helping also at the beginning, because I was not a co-founder, and that was kind of my strength. I have no stakes here.
Yeah, you're a new person coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And I could say really what I was seeing, and really to help you. That was my intention, like each of you in the team, without the stakes and the win, I'm going to say the thing that will serve my benefits. It's like, I'm employed here to do my job, you know.
No, it's a... it depends really what kind of advisor you provide. Like the ones where I've been advising, it's quite usual where they're like, okay, so what should we do then? And then that means the action plan, and then you have to go through that. So maybe you work with more self-starting. Not self-starting is wrong thing, but I've noticed that in the end, it's like it's good to come in with a final proposal. It's like, these are the 5 things we're going to focus on.
Yeah, of course.
And that's how we're going to achieve. And it's always through a lot of communication and alignment, and always telling them it's going to be slow. Because the problem is things were too fast in the beginning. That's why we're slowing things down right now. That's at least my usual communication with the founders, and where they are usually in that situation where my advice is needed, is that from my own experience, it's important that we slow things down right now, because we're acting like we're 10 here, and you know, whatever the company might be, 150 or 300 at that point when I walk in. So everything is about slowing down, clear lines of communication, alignment on the top, strategy.
Because those things really get multiplied, like those cracks.
Yes.
They get multiplied, and it's really hard to fix a communication with 100 people individually when you don't have a solid system of line of communication. And you have known that, like even like changing 10 to 30 is you're already not communicating directly usually with people, but you have like the leads, intermediary leads, that who are the people who need clarity, the direction, the buy-in to be able to communicate with the team. And if you don't have a clear system of communication and even a line, imagine the disaster, like where I gave that example where you have 8 different answers, 100 different answers. Like, what kind of game are you making as a group, right?
Yeah, it creates a situation where the organization's leadership or decision-making process is unclear, because it feels like individuals are making decisions even though they're not, like founders, for example. Just thinking about like the cases that I worked on, and you know, my personal experience as well is like, if you start thinking from the beginning that you're the CEO, let's put it this way, or you know, CEO is a good example, then you start off right away from the lonely job perspective of like, I have to really control my communication. I know this is a startup with 5 people or with 10 people or with 15 people, but at the same time, you are like, you have to move, like think forward. And that for me was like totally new in the sense, because like I react to the environment that I have. But I then come to think about some other, you know, super successful, not some other, but founders that are super successful, usually second-time founders, is like they started off from the second round again knowing that soon they're going to be much larger, and they held their communication, held their role. Like they were doing that role before that role even emerged. And so they were that lonely person until they suddenly had that leadership team in a larger company, not suddenly, but a couple of years. It's like very forward thinking because you know what's behind the corner. And it also leads to like what kind of mentors do you have in the company? Like, are people telling you this? Like, hey, by the way, I know you're only 5 right now. In a year, there's going to be 15, and you can be. And with the 15, you can still be the chatty cat or whatnot. You can be yourself, but then it's going to be a problem when you're 300. And we've talked to other CEOs that were talking about this thing where they had formed the people who came in early, and we've been at the companies where people came in early. They have a special type of relationship with the founders that is weird to others who came in later. It's like, what is this? Like, you're on the same title level that I am, but you have like a totally different type of access to leadership, and you're joking and having this, and I'm kind of like, it's a hidden power structure that will emerge if you don't take the lonely road from the beginning.
It's a hard job. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. For the CEOs, it's not the glorious job at all. It's like you get a lot of the problems and the hate eventually.
Well, I talked to one of relatively new female CEOs that we have in the city. I think we refer to the role as a spit bucket. I think it's. I think she said it, but it's like a.
And this is also where I can see that, and that's where I really want to help. And in the future, I'm really thinking of growing even a network of maybe other like people who could mentor and help, because it's such a lonely role. But you can't talk openly about not to an employee, and sometimes not to your co-founders. And you need support. You need support because to make a clear decision. So that's really the challenging part.
All right, I could talk for you forever, but you have a plane to catch. I can only say that if you're a founder CEO, you should come to Deconstructor Fun, all the alcohol tasting events, because there's only CEO and founders around you, and you can be yourself in this company. That's number one. That's number two. Number one is, I really enjoyed when you were joining us, is like, you did this workshop with the leadership team, and I remember I got so much out of it, or the whole leadership got so much out of it. I can only recommend studios to reach out to you and do these workshops with you. The alignment is no joke. It's like, I mean, it was for me a joke in the beginning until I realized that it was like the most important thing. But it's really the role of the CEO. The first thing the CEO needs to succeed at is the building alignment with his leadership team or her leadership team. And that is sometimes very easy, oftentimes very difficult, especially as the company grows, as the leadership team grows, as there's more effects and so forth. So there are people, advisors like yourself providing help with that, and I can only recommend that. It's like therapy. Like, you think you don't need it, you kind of do. It's like
I have like a big secret. Everyone needs it. It's just like there's a majority of us who don't know that we do.
Exactly. It just makes you better, and so I'm really excited. I'm excited that you're crafting your role. You're taking this seriously, and really like the stuff that you keep sending me about like different ideas, because I'm an idea guy. I'm like, yes, awesome, let's do it. So I love all of that stuff. I'm a starter, not a finisher. So mostly.
That's why I talk to you to start.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, happy to help with anything, and I recommend people to reach out to Sophie and talk about these things. It's a really, really powerful thing that you don't know you need until you get it, and then that helps you significantly. So thanks for coming to my place.
Casa Quatre.
Yeah.
Come back anytime. My coffee, 5-star.
Yes, coffee. Oh, no, you didn't drink. You're a coffee aficionado, so I can't serve you my machine coffee just like that. Thanks everybody for listening. Let us know how you felt about this episode. As always, all feedback taken. If you liked it, why? If you didn't, why? Do you have Slack channel?
Rise and Play as well.
Slack channel.
Oh, Rise and Play channel.
Okay, Rise and Play channel. All right. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Boom. That's it.